I just I cringe now at how I compared it to Stephen King. This may be my favorite book of the year.
Why am I in this godforsaken country?
Hi, I'm Josh. Welcome today to my Blackathon reading vlog. I participate in Blackathon every year since I started BookTube, since it started even. I really wanted to do something to be involved, and I figured why not at least try to do a vlog where I try to participate more actively than I might have otherwise. I'm already planning on reading Black authors, but I want to focus on the ones that I want to try and cater to for the prompts. That's really the goal of this video, is to try and get to the prompts. My success will really end up depending on just, life and my mood. Let's talk about some of the books I am thinking about reading. The first one that will cater to the second prompt here, which is to read a black and red and green cover, is the Ecstatic by Victor LaValle. I don't know anything about this book, but I do know it's the first novel ever published by Victor LaValle, and I've only ever loved Victor LaValle's works. He tends to write books that overlap between Lovecraftian horror, psychological horror. His use of horror is really effective for me, but also it's always extremely deliberate with a very poignant message behind it. And I absolutely adore his books. This is one I'm absolutely already planning on reading, so it works perfectly for this prompt. A 2024 release, which is prompt number 4, is The Womb City, which is a new horror, I believe, astro-futuristic sci-fi that came out just the end of January. I have an arc for it. I really hope I like it. Those were really the two main ones, but I was already thinking about reading The Good House by Tanner Eve Due, and then when I thought about finding a recommendation from a Black Book Talker or a bookstagrammer, I kind of cheated in the sense that I sought out someone who I knew liked that book and likely had recommended it. So I went to Brief and Lock Petition's TikTok. I don't really use TikTok and Instagram that much, but I knew she had one, so I checked it out. Found where she recommended some Black horror authors because she runs Blackathon, or just Blackaween, I think, and she recommended this book. So I'd been wanting to reread it for a while. I loved Tanner Eve Due. This was the first one I read, but I read it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I think I've matured as a reader and as a person, and I'd like to think that I can get a lot more out of it upon reread. As with Victor LaValle, I expect it to be very insightful and deliberate with what it has to say. Other than that, the comic and graphic novel, which is prompt number 6, was one I wasn't planning on doing, but then I remembered I have this book on my TBR that's been on my radar for so long, called The Dialogues, Conversations about the Nature of the Universe, which is by a Black physicist, Dr. Clifford V. Johnson. This is one I haven't picked up for a long time, even though I wanted to. I think it's just meant to be a dialogue, a way of trying to communicate science and physics through this new medium of a graphic novel. And that by itself, I think, could be fascinating. I think one of the biggest motivations behind this vlog, trying to cater to these prompts, is that if it gets me to read this book, a book that's been on my radar, this would have been sitting on the shelf because I tend to gravitate towards audiobooks more than graphic novels, I would consider it really a success. The prompt on 2 or more POVs, I'm pretty sure The Good House has more than one POV. I'm not doing the group book. I'm considering doing a pseudonymous author. I won't say the one I'm thinking about reading unless I actually get to it. This is really going to be driven by my mood. If I feel compelled to pick up one, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'm going to focus on the books that already sort of fit the prompts I wanted to read. And if I'm reading other stuff too, that one's the prompts, I might talk about them. So I'll leave it at that for now because this is already a very long intro. Otherwise, I'll check in with you later.
He says, I can get us 2 Swedish buddies by tonight. They have one of the highest ranking passports, which will accrue us many benefits. If that is difficult, I can get South African buddies to buy us time as we look for new buddies with a better future. We're tied down with so much illegal shit that one more illegal shit makes no difference.
Maybe hear us. Let's see. Hi, everybody. Over here at the beach of the pier from Mandurah Trip. Basically say that.
That's not true. So what are you trying to say, Josh?
Well, I just finished The Womb City. I mostly loved it. I'll talk more about it once I'm finished.
This is Josh and Marcus. I gotta jump in.
It's raining. We have to leave. Here to update you, things I haven't given up yet. Where am I? I finished Womb City. I really liked it. I want to do a standalone review, so I'm not going to say too much here. Let's just say it's an Afrofuturist world. Basically, you can store your consciousness in some kind of microchip and, have your life preserved. But the whole dynamic around it is coded in just so many layers of oppression just being perpetuated here, where the already privileged class, using the system to control the underclass, this supposedly advanced system. Overall, the writing is very compelling. It is a great intersection of horror and sci-fi. The biggest critique, the thing that makes this a 4-star, is because the themes are too heavy-handed. And frankly, I just think the author needs to have more nuance and also a little bit more faith in your reader. But as a novel, like, honestly, I almost pushes the 4.5 star despite how bad the things were handled. But nevertheless, the writing and the story and the intersection between sci-fi and horror is just too good not to love. For my full thoughts, check out that review whenever it comes out. Hopefully it'll come out this month. Maybe even before this video comes out. But TLDR, it's an easy recommend to everyone. It has its problems, but I think it definitely is worth reading. I've already begun my next book, which was one that I wasn't planning on reading. It is Long Division by Kai Lehman. This is one I've had in my radar for quite a while. It's a time travel book. So far, it's a really fascinating, sort of intricately woven time travel story that weaves in different narratives from the past, from 1960s, 80s, and the present. It was a little confusing at first, but I managed to catch on. I'm still a little confused on the dynamics of where we are at. Part of the problem is that at least 2 of those times has a character of the exact same name. Why that is still a mystery, but it's intriguing. It's a really well-crafted world with some really insightful commentary going on in a much more subtle way than Room City. Still, I probably don't like it quite as much as Room City, just because Room City was doing things that I loved in a fairly well-done way, while this one, I think, while intellectually interesting, isn't quite as compelling, but still good in its own right. Oh, wait a second. Technically, we have different perspectives, because we have different times, but really, one perspective is in a book, and it's being read by the main character, but also that other perspective is by the character of the same name, who may or may not be the same person. I don't think it is. There's just kind of a mindfuck going on.
I just loved that there was someone alive who could say the things I thought, but didn't know how to fully say. It would take me a week of planning to come up with the clever stuff she could come up with in seconds.
I finished Long Division. I think I'm settling between 3.5 and 4 stars, probably closer to 4. My feelings feel like they're closer to 3.5. But this book, I just feel like it's one of those experimental, ambitious books. And I feel like it's more intriguing than it is annoying at how confusing it is. It's the story of this heavyset teen black boy who is living in 2013, which is modern day, and he's reading about this story without an author, Long Division, a kid in the 1980s, I think. But this kid in the story has the same exact name as him. And overall, I do really like it. It was really intriguing. Unfortunately, it left me feeling like there was more story to tell. And in some ways, like I say, it's a good thing, because it's like, I'm still thinking about it when it's done, which is a positive. But at the same time, it just feels incomplete.
So let me begin by evoking some of the 50th anniversary events. This is the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, in which he defended his decision to organize in Birmingham, where he was accused of being an outside agitator, in this way.
I guess we're going to see how good the voice focuses on this phone. A very nice night tonight. No clouds, beautiful temperature, water. Not much of a book update, so much as just like along the river for the first time in a while. It's just really nice. I really do this more often. Flat tire, yay. Thankfully, it was only like a 30-minute walk from home, which I guess sounds kind of far, but isn't too bad, considering it was like a 2.5 hour ride total. The right side is, I finished. It was a constant struggle. All right. I'm going to refilm everything I just said, because I was so on and off with this, trying to find a consistent light, and now I am in a neighborhood with a light source. Let me explain my thoughts on It was a constant struggle. I think the big takeaway I take from this book is that it is, if anything, a call to action. A reminder or a urge for us to recognize that the fight for freedom is a collective struggle, not something that is done on an individual basis. And I think the final essays really make that point. If you have any critiques on the subject, I would say, as a series of essays and speeches, there is some repetition. They weren't necessarily designed for this collection, but they were curated for it. I think overall, while there is some repetition, it generally, each is adding a new perspective onto the others. My biggest critique is that I wish there was no the dog. My biggest critique is I wish there was a deeper dive on these topics. But I think because it is that call to action, I don't think it's intended to be a deep exploration of each of these concepts. Rather, it is meant to illustrate how systems of oppression across the world and throughout history have a fundamental foundation in which they all share. They are interconnected. And that in the same way that we fight for civil rights for BIPOC individuals in America, we should be fighting for those across the world, like in Palestine. And that is where I find my biggest weakness, is that I think I have approached the subject of Palestine to be frank and direct on this idea of just being too ignorant to really dive into the subject. And I think this book really illustrates how ignorance is never an excuse for silence and inaction. And that really feeds into the broader conversation of the need to be a part of the collective to make change. And I think for me, on a personal level, this just tells me that I need to be doing a deeper dive into the subject of Israel and Palestine and the Free Gaza movement. And I do think this book works in that way, in which it will intertwine these concepts in a fascinating way, and it will highlight, I think, possible areas of ignorance that need to be explored deeper for anyone reading it. It's a fascinating essay collection. I highly recommend it. For now, I'm going to watch the live discussion by the Book Community Read group over on Jess Owen's channel. I'll let you know if I have any extra thoughts, but that's pretty much it for this one. See you later.
Corey was lying on his stomach in the exact center of the cellar floor. His head was turned away from her, one arm raised nearly to his face, the other limp at his side, palm upward. He looked like he was taking a nap. And he must have dropped some of the drinks, some of the red ones, maybe some bottles of cherry syrup, because his head lay in the midst of a red puddle that reached almost as far as the wine shelves against the far wall. And the puddle was growing.
Biking along the river. It's Wednesday, just a couple days after I got my flat tire. And well, I finished The Good House. Let me start by saying how surprised I am that I finished The Good House. I just remember thinking, I'll probably finish this on Friday if I push really hard. And then somehow I'm here on Wednesday and I'm finished with the book. I have no idea how I did this. I guess this means this vlog is going really well. At this point, I feel like this is going to get posted. I don't know how many books I've read. I feel like it's been really productive. A lot of really interesting books, and I'm just so excited to have finished this. Now I want to talk about The Good House, though. Generally, I just want to do this comparison to my original thoughts. Like, I liked the book at first, originally, I just to say, and I like it even more now. My biggest complaints with myself and my own review, I look back on it from 2019, nearly 5 years ago when I first read this book. It's hard to believe it's been that long. I remember comparing it to Stephen King. To be fair, at that time I was actively trying to read new Stephen King authors, so he was pretty much my limited perspective on what makes a horror book. I cringe now at how I compared it to Stephen King, partly because I think there's very much subjective nature to my review, especially as a white person reading a book that deals so heavily with race. So to say that it is less effective as a horror book is itself, I think, just a very flawed perspective to think that necessarily I have the quintessential idea of what makes a good horror book. I'll say pretty clearly, I think this is more effective than most Stephen King books in most of the ways that matter to me now as a reader who's basically 5 years older. I've learned that there is a very distinct skill comes with that takes it for to be a really good horror writer, and that isn't just about being able to make someone feel unnerved. It's about making someone feel unnerved but having a deliberate purpose and utilizing the genre for a bigger point. And that's something that I think has rarely, if ever, been the goal, if it has been, hasn't really been achieved by Stephen King. While Du has proven time and time again that she doesn't just write a compelling and really quite disturbing and unnerving at times story, but she does so with very deliberate and focused commentary that is just far more insightful than King has ever done. And then comparing it to the ending, we're going to get to some spoil conversations here, but I'll make sure I put timestamps, basically this section of the timestamp. I remember complaining, saying it was too fairy tale, too much of a happy ending. Part of me still feels like, yes, it is a little bit less effective for having an ending that basically undoes everything. But I think there's more nuance to that ending than I realized. First off, just a matter of it wasn't just undone. It was more like our main character, Angie, had the chance to go back to this moment. And while she doesn't have her memories, there seems to definitely be an implication that she has some impression of this life lived. And that does give some weight, some consequence to the entire book basically that's been undone. I remember this idea I had at this ending being back, it's undoing what all of the stuff that we just experienced. There was a conversation in one of the book club reviews that were done.
Tananarive is not an easy read by any stretch of the imagination. And if you go into it thinking, oh, I'm just going to get, my run-of-the-mill horror or haunted house or vampire story or whatever it is that you're reading by her, you're going to be like, whoa, I need to take a step back.
Mm-hmm. For me, I just be wanting to read books, some books by Black authors where the character just so happened to be Black. I just want to have a break of that real everyday thing that we go through, because books is also supposed to be a form of escapism. There's only so much of a specific type of narrative that I can take. I'm not saying that legacy is not still living within all of us, even us on this screen, but just sometimes I just want a little joy, or just something that's not reminding me of the difficulty that associated with me being Black, doing an activity that I enjoy, which is reading. And the Black trauma that get popularized, to me, be having problematic points.
Yeah, it continues to perpetuate it, and oftentimes I think in a negative way. It's not presented in a way that allows us to heal or begin to or start to make sense of the trauma.
The end of the book, I kind of wish that we got more chapters of her being in that world and experiencing that happiness.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm thinking, like, was there really a happy ending? I mean, what was it? I mean, that's what we would hope, but sometimes in a lot of narratives, especially when it comes to Black stories, sometimes there is no happy ending at the end of the day.
Point is that I guess I realize now, largely thanks to that discussion, there's more nuance to that than even I could realize as a white reader, frankly. And that's a lot of my thoughts on this. But I am really glad that I reread it, and I'm really thankful for all the people discussing it, especially the book club that I linked to below, for the reasons that I've really laid out here. I think it's much better than I remember. And give me this split between 4.5 and 5 stars.
Is it fair for me to have been insulted? I was a wart that had been dissolved. Good that I didn't see Nabasis or Grandma, because I would have thrown my last 2 malapes at those foundlings. I would have screamed that my sister had lied. I would have ruined her chances. That's how angry I was. In the third...
Here, the Mandurah Giants in Mandurah, Western Australia. I would update you. I finished the Ecstatic live ritual roll the last hour, so I was like listening while I was napping, so does that really count? I might listen to it again. Oh, unfortunately, this is not a great Not a great read for me. This is his debut novel, Victor Laval, and he's looking at this family, dysfunctional family, focusing on this one overweight young kid. He has a kind of mental illness, maybe schizophrenia, it's not clear. And basically, in his perspective, it's not clear whether or not everything he's telling us is what's actually happening versus not real. And there's a great deal of lack of clarity, of confusion, surreal absurdness. And for starters, this book is not an audio, so I did a text-to-speech, which I don't know if a professional audiobook would have made any difference, because the problem with this is that we're getting it from his perspective, which is like this schizophrenic or mentally ill perspective that is unreliable and at times just really weird and absurd and over the top. The context of the situation is just so hard to grasp, and I'm not sure that a narrator would have made a difference. I think a really skilled narrator can impact the ability to add context to sentences. This is one of those books, though, that require like a meticulous eye when reading, and I just don't think I'm in the headspace for that. I was looking for that. I honestly thought I probably shouldn't have finished it, but I was feeling kind of completionist.
Listening to our favorite song. When I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful, I don't deserve this, darling. You were perfect tonight. I have faith in what I see. Now I know
You're only getting like maybe less than 3 hours sleep last night.
Why weren't you sleeping?
The bed was so hard.
I also was snoring.
Yeah, that didn't help.
deserve this. You look perfect tonight.
Figure out where this might be. Editing Josh here. What you're looking at are thrombolites. These look like rocks, but are actually ancient forms of microbial communities that photosynthesize, that is to say, produce energy from sunlight. They obtain calcium carbonate from the water to form these structures that are about 2,000 years old. 600 million years ago, the ancestors of thrombolites and strombolites produced the oxygen needed for life on land to exist. Today, you can only find them in a few places in Western Australia and the world. This is from a posting located at this site from whoever it is that manages the location. But from my memory, I'm pretty sure that some of the oldest forms of life on Earth are at least akin to this. They're very similar to this type of life. And it is just really fascinating to think about the earliest forms of life that existed on Earth, because that's basically what you're looking at.
I don't know what I dislike most about this. The hike itself in this heat or the threat of spiders. Because I think I'm more terrified of spiders. For the nightmare come true. Why did I come here, Joe? Why am I in this godforsaken country?
I think there's like dingoes and stuff out here.
God, I don't want to lose another baby, Joe. We made it. We survived. Consider your safety. Respect the artist's work. Hello. What a tree hugger. I bet he's vegan. You should drink some of this before we go.
Oh, are you serious?
What?
The giant's pointing that way, so we're going to have to set trail and off-road again.
Into the unknown. That wasn't rehearsed at all.
Sound like the curse.
The curse, thank you. It's all for the gram, Joe.
Alright, we're about to go on a race down to the bottom.
This
Now, flying foxes.
flying foxes. A zip line, basically.
Count down, Josh.
3, 2,
Yes.
1, go.
Go!
I'm going much slower this time. What the hell? For moments before tragedy strikes, maybe?
Yeah.
Cassie, you better watch yourself, girl. Big Ma cautioned, putting one rough, large hand against my back to make sure I didn't fall. I looked down at my grandmother from midway up one of the wooden poles Papa had set out to mark the length of the cotton field. Big Ma was Papa's mother, and like him, she was tall and strongly built. Her clear, smooth skin was the color of a pecan shell.
Just got into my office for work. It has been a while, at least like a week, since I've been you, probably a bit more than that. I just finished I Am Thunder, Hear Me War. Life's just been really busy, so I've just not read as much, and I've also just not been in the mood to record. But I want to try and get myself propelled forward again, back into the swing of reading and also recording for you. Sound of Thunder was a interesting classic about a black family living in Jim Crow, Mississippi. In short, the book is dark in the way you would expect it to be, but it walks the line of overt descriptions because it's a YA book. And personally, I thought it did a pretty good job of, I think, walking the line of not getting too explicit while also not really shielding the reader from the harsh realities of that day. I think the highlight of this book really is the heart at the center of the family. And this wasn't on my TBR at all, but it was one that I had bought a while back on Audible because, one, I heard some good things about it on YouTube, and I wanted something that would seem a bit more heartfelt. I did not realize it was going to be dealing with such heavy topics. But also, primarily, honestly, the reason I bought an Audible was because Lynn Thigpen narrates the first Parable of the Sower, Earthseed book. And I loved her narration. I wanted more of her. Unfortunately, she passed away in the early 2000s. We have a lot of books by her. And this is one that we did. So I ended up buying this. And because of the last book I read, the Ecstatic, just not being great, I needed something that I thought would be an easier read. And that meant also getting a narrator who I know I like. In addition to that, I forgot to mention, I did start and then immediately stop Nisi Shaw's book, Ever Fair or something. The main reason I started it was because I got it granted on Libby, and I thought, why not just give it a shot? But the truth is that I saw the mixed reviews on it. I saw that it wasn't necessarily the easiest read. Very quickly after I started, I thought to myself, this is not the right time to be reading this book. Because of that, I realized I just need to stop. I don't want to put myself in a lull.
Welcome, young lady, said Mickey Wright, the premier announcer for Chain Gang All-Stars, the crown jewel in the Criminal Action Penal Entertainment Program. Why don't you tell us your name? His high boots were planted in the turf of the battleground, which was long and green, stroked with cocaine white hash marks like a divergent football field.
is so much quieter here today. Like there's basically no wind. The last couple of days have been hell for me, but I'm finally almost done with my next book. I've been reading Chain Gang All Stars. I'm actually almost done. I have like 40 minutes left in the audiobook. I regret that I did not read this sooner. Honestly, it is such the perfect intersection of just a very compelling sci-fi dystopian book with a very real world commentary underlying it. And this like is the perfect example of, I think, how to do this kind of thing in a way that Womb City just really fails at, in the sense that a lot of this feels like so deliberately said, like it's explicitly being told to us, but it's the avenue which it's being communicated through interviews, through news clippings of real world events interlaced into the story that just make it all more natural. It's just a really good example of how to do this kind of commentary in a really quite heavy-handed way that is still feels natural to the story. So I guess I should give some context. Chain Gang All Stars is this dystopian future by the author of Friday Black, Kwame Adjei, I think it is. It's basically a dystopian future where criminals in prison can forego their prison sentence if they fight for a certain amount of time in basically some gladiator style murder competition. That really tells you all you need to know, because what it does is it doesn't try to create a system that isn't already really there. Like, yes, that system itself is new, but the things that create it, that the system propagates, is so fundamentally mirroring what's actually happening. As far as the prison industrial complex, the way in which we dehumanize people who are convicted of crimes. Notice I say they're convicted, not necessarily inherently criminals. It's just a book that I'm absolutely loving and can so easily recommend. Okay, I just finished Chain Gang All Stars by Kwame Adjei. I'm sorry, my mind is still reeling. I listened to the ending 3 or 4 times to make sure I understood exactly what happened. I really love this book. It's great. Highly recommend. Got a busy week. I've still been pretty busy, so I'm off filming, obviously, but I want to finish this off with a read that's not just so heavy in the trauma, which a lot of these books have been. So I have a book in mind that I want to read, and I'll get back to you.
She is astonished we don't know each other. The only 2 black men in a course of over 200. Lenny looks fully black, not mixed like me. He is only a little bit taller than me, but he's stocky. I can't tell if it's muscle or fat because he wears a baggy black Nike tracksuit. He has locks like me, but longer and thicker. Lenny looks strong.
Okay, it was quicker than I thought it would be, like 24 hours quick, but I finished Black Flamingo. And dear God, this may be my favorite book of the year. I've never understood when people say 6 out of 5. This is totally a 6 out of 5. Such a perfect book to end this vlog because it just was so beautiful and inspiring. Like, I had to resist the urge to cry like multiple times throughout the story. I need to reread it already. It's just the journey of a young black queer boy understanding his identity as a gay person, as a black biracial person, and as someone who finds drag as a way to celebrate their identity. It is so beautiful. It doesn't ignore some of the tough parts of being that identity, but it's really about celebrating more than anything. And I need more books like this. It is just so beautiful, and it honestly resonated with me on such a really fundamental level, hence the wanting to cry all the time while reading it, which is so good. But that's this. I'm going to call it there and resist the urge to keep reading other books. I have other projects I want to continue on, and so I know I didn't read all the books I want to. I know at this point I will commit to reading that comic or that graphic novel about physics. It may not be right now, but before the year is out, I'm adding it to my 2024 to I wanted to read it for a while. It's a long graphic novel, and I don't want to try to push through it, especially since it's still nonfiction science, and I just want to take my time with it. So I'm going to start it when I feel comfortable. For now, I'm going to call this the end of my vlog. I hope you enjoyed this. If you made it to the end, I adore you. Appreciate it.